Hello, everyone. My name is Kelley Pierre. I'm from African American Golfers Digest, and we have very special guests with us today. We have Jason Langwell and Sommer Woods. Jason is he's the executive director of the Rocket Mortgage Classic, as well as the vice president for Intersports. Sommer Woods, she's the co-founder of the Woods and Watts Effect and the tournament lead for the John Shippen. She's also the vice chair of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So if you don't mind, I would like for the both of you just to, really introduce yourself and just give, overall, like background and just say hello. So I'll start with you, Jason.
Sure. Hey, Kelley, good to be with you. As you said, Jason Langwell, have the pleasure of serving as executive director of the Rocket Mortgage Classic, the first ever PGA Tour event here in the great city of Detroit. Work for a company called Intersport, sports marketing and media company, headquartered in Chicago. And I started the Detroit office here when the Rocket Mortgage Classic got started back in late 18, early 2019. We have a team here that runs the Rocket Mortgage Classic and supports Rocket Mortgage and a number of their sponsorship efforts in town. So been in the golf business my entire career and love the game, and excited to be here with you today.
Nice.
So hi, Kelley. It's nice to be here as well. So as you stated, I am from Sommer Woods, but I am from Detroit, proud Detroiter, and actually grew up playing the game of golf. So it's great to just have the life come full circle in terms of just the hometown connection and partnering up with Intersport and Jason on this event. So to that point, I am a volunteer vice chair for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and I've been there for a couple of years since the tournament has been here. So that's been great working under the general vice chair, Mayor Archer. And then for this great partnership, it is in connection with the company that I co-founded, which is the Woods and Watts Effect, based here in Detroit, that we focus on equity and inclusion within all aspects of organizations or different events and solutions. And that is how I have tied in with the golf connection, the vice chair connection with the John Shippen with Intersport.
Nice. So Jason, can you give our viewers the basics about the John Shippen? We know it's a brand new golf tournament and sports business summit just announced this week. But if you could, please share some of the details that our audience may not know.
Okay, sure, Kelley. So as you said, the John Shippen is two events in one. It's a 2-day golf competition followed by a 2-day sports business summit. So 2-day golf competition is going to take place at Detroit Golf Club's South and North Course on June 26th and 27th. That's the Sunday before and Monday of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And it's going to feature the top Black men and women golfers, amateur and professional, in the nation. So the men's division is going to be competing in an individual stroke play competition with the winner earning an exemption into the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And the women's division is going to be a 2-person team competition with the winning team earning a team exemption into the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational just 2 weeks after the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And so the John Shippen Sports Business Summit is a 2-day summit. It's going to be virtual this year. We're up to 10,000 high school and college-aged men and women of color are going to have, from across the nation, not just in the Detroit area, but across the nation, are going to have access to hear and learn from and about the sports and entertainment industry, from industry professionals, from athletes, from influencers, and thanks in large part to our presenting sponsor, Rocket Mortgage, Tryon Solutions, Dow, the Children's Foundation, and Chemico. We're going to be able to give away thousands of dollars worth of paid internships and scholarships. They're going to be made available to those who participate and attend that are looking to get a career started in the sports business. So we're going to conclude all of that, conclude the event. Intersport and PGA Tour Entertainment are going to be working together to produce a 1-hour special on CBS leading into final round coverage of the Rocket Mortgage Classic to ensure that this event, our great city, Detroit, and John Shippen's story and legacy are told across the nation.
Nice. Sommer, before we get into talking about the genesis of the event, let's take a step back for a brief history lesson. There may be some golf fans out there with an appreciation for the game's history who may know the name John Shippen, but for those who don't, who was he and why was he so significant?
No, thank you. I mean, I think that's, part of this process, right, is to elevate who John Shippen was, not just within golf history, but American history, right? So, John Shippen was an amazing golfer. He was born here in outside of DC area, and him and his family moved to the Shinnecock to the reservation, and so there, when he was there was there was a golf course that was nearby, the Shinnecock golf course, that there was a golf professional that wanted to, teach those that were in the area. And it was him along with some other students that he taught them how to caddy and to play the game. So him and Oscar Bunn, who was a Native American, John Shippen was an African American. They were, good. And he said, the USGA president at the time was like, listen, we want to put some names in the US Open. In 1896, when the US Open was played there, he said, we want to put some names up to play. And he put those names up to play. And it was a little pushback, obviously, as you can imagine, in 1896, as it relates to just, Shippen was one generation out of slavery. His father was a freed slave, enslaved African. And, there was a quote that said, we don't want to play with the color boys. And that was speaking of John Shippen and Oscar Bunn. And actually, he stood his ground. The USG president at the time, Theodore, stood his ground and said, hey, we're going to play this game. If you all are here now, we're going to play this tournament. And the next day, everybody showed up to play, and they played with John Shippen and Oscar Bunn in the field. It obviously, and I know we'll talk a little bit about this later, but Mr. Simmons was very pivotal within this journey. He always jokes that if he would have won and wouldn't have messed up on that one hole, it would probably be a totally different conversation right now, right? That we're not suppressing the history of and the legacy of who he was and who he is. And to that, because that is very sensitive when you look at just the history of African Americans within this country, that sometimes those stories are not always elevated. He is one of those stories. So he literally cemented the title of being the first American-born golf professional who happened to be a Black man. Right. And so when we talk about that, and you talk about this game of golf that was rooted in was a European sport, right? So it was, from Scotland, and here it is that he was teaching people how to play the game at the golf course as a 16-year-old, where here he is in 1896, cementing his role in history of being the first American-born golf professional. And then from there, he, went on, continued to teach until his days that he is no longer with us. But his legacy is still with us, and we truly do stand on the shoulders of his greatness and what he did to endure. Even when you look at news articles during the time that talked about the colored boys, you know what I mean? Like when you think about that and being able to compete in that type of pressure and steel tie fit. I think that says a lot about who he was to endure during those times of discrimination in 1896 and beyond until his passing. Right.
So, Jason, how and when did this whole idea get started? If you want to expound on that.
Yeah, no, I'll share that. And so the idea really started back in 2019 when we were executing on, the vision of Dan Gilbert, the founder of Rocket Companies, Jay Farner, their CEO, to bring the Rocket Mortgage Classic to life. And as we brought the event to life, diversity, equity, and inclusion was was a massive priority for our events, priority for Rocket Mortgage, priority for our city, priority for our company. And that's when Sommer and I began our friendship. And she became, as she mentioned, a volunteer vice chair. And we began, brainstorming on how to make the Rocket Mortgage Classic, inclusive and representative of the community that we're in, which is Detroit. And we were successful in doing that. And coming out of, we actually were fortunate to be awarded the Fairway Award from the PGA Tour 2019 which recognized one event for their efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Coming out of that, we began to brainstorm on, what else can we do? And we brainstormed with Ebony Walls, who's philanthropy and partnerships lead for Rocket Mortgage Classic, Trina Govan-Scott, who's head of diversity, equity, inclusion for Rocket, Casey Herbis, their CMO at Rocket Mortgage. We started brainstorming with a number of people on how we could kind of build off of that strong DE&I base. And the Sports Business Summit idea actually came first. Sommer actually, in addition to working on a volunteer vice chair, helped us to launch a program called Lessons for Detroit Youth, which is a program that provided high school age men and women of color an opportunity to be exposed to the business of sport, the hospitality business of the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Worked with our hospitality partner and catering concessionaire, Forte Bellinger, and young men and women became temporary employees. They kind of learned what it was like to work in the hospitality business. And so, but we realized there was a lot more to be done there. And so the Business Summit idea came first. We thought that we've got to find a way to create more paid internship and scholarship opportunities for men and women of color, not just in Detroit, but across the nation. And then from there, the idea grew into how we could also provide opportunities for the top Black golfers to shine. So that's really when that idea came, we engaged Rocket Mortgage, which offered the exemption for the men, and then we engaged Dow, who have been kind enough to offer the team exemption for the women. And so that's a little bit of the genesis for how we got to the event itself. And then we needed we wanted to come up with a name for the event. And that's where Sommer and I'd read an article that Bob Denny from the PGA of America had written about John Shippen and his legacy, and called Thurman. I got the number from Bob, called Thurman, had a conversation with him and just about how we were looking to name this event after, a Black legend in the game. And we heard the story, and as Sommer just shared, there's no better individual and legacy to recognize and honor than John Shippen Jr. And so that the name came last. It started, so the Sports Business Summit, then the event, we kind of brought them together as two events in one, and then came up with the name last and named it after John Shippen. So that's a little bit of background on the event itself. And just in terms, I think you asked about just Detroit and having the event here, it obviously made a lot of sense for a number of reasons to anchor the event, the inaugural event here in Detroit around the Rocket Mortgage Classic. There's a number of, you can imagine, a number of efficiencies that you gain from leveraging the existing infrastructure of a PGA Tour event that's happening, and to have this event on the front end of it just makes for a nice glide into the front end of tournament week, from John Shippen into the summit and then into the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So we're hard to believe it's just 90 days away or so from coming to life, Sommer.
Thanks
so
for that.
It's
Thanks.
Yeah, right. 93 days. So yeah, that's the history and the genesis of kind of the journey that Sommer and I have been on, our companies, and how we came together to collaborate and figure out a way to take action together.
Nice.
I think the other part that's important to build off of that too, Kelley, is not only is Detroit, an anchor of who we are, is, we're a very Black city. We are majority Black, but even as it relates to this game, there is a lot of Black people who play this game very well, right? That have dreams of aspirations of being able to make it to the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour, that history has not always allowed that to make it easy through, limitation to golf courses, to sponsorship opportunities, to access to swing coach to access to equipment, like all these different things that becomes the barriers. I think that's what's important and we should definitely elevate is when you think about Rocket Mortgage Classic and the golf event, for them to use their sponsor exemption in this way to elevate a bigger conversation, it's not just about one golfer, right? So every PGA Tour event can use their sponsor exemption as they choose. If they would like to, people submit and they choose that one or two or three, however many players to be a part of it. And what this event allows us to do is not just to elevate the chosen one or two or three, because sometimes in this space of, we call it this post kind of Black Lives Matter era, you kind of got sometimes a couple of people or a couple of projects or a couple of things that get elevated, but it's a broader conversation that we can build on. And so when we're able to elevate a selected number of these individuals to be able to play, and with the CBS special, we're elevating a bigger conversation about how can we get them out to the world to know that we exist, and how can we support them through sponsorships? How can we support them through, PR representation? How can we support them? And so that's what this event does. And that's why the connection to who John Shippen is in history, and who these individuals, who they are and where we are current, is a perfect mesh of that. So for Rocket Mortgage to step up to say, we would like to use our exemption to elevate not just one golfer, but to talk about a bigger conversation about these barriers and historical barriers, but also for Dow to come in with the Great Lakes Bay Invitational in Midland, that's not too far from here, that, they could have easily said, listen, let's wait until 2022 with our sponsor exemptions. But for them to step up to say, listen, we want to be a part of this conversation and solution to also highlight Black women who want to play and make it on the LPGA Tour as well. So I don't want that to get lost within that conversation, that's very important, that those donors within it, that they were able to to leverage those exemptions in a much greater capacity to talk about a bigger conversation about equity of Black golfers in the game of golf.
Right. So the event sounds like a terrific, opportunity to, open doors for young men and women of color, and, on the golf course and in the sports business world. What do you hope that they get out of this?
Well, I know for me, as somebody who is a product of intentional programming, I hope there's other Sommers, right? There's other women and people of color that are able to leverage when there are opportunities that are intentional, because in order to be equitable and inclusive, you have to be intentional. And so when you have the business summit that is specific to students of color, that is intentional outreach to say, how can we in a sport that is not necessarily, when you think about the game of golf, you don't necessarily think about people of color per se, because it's not always reflective of who we are, right? And so when you're intentional within that program and to say, hey, this is how we want to get it out, to say, it's not just being on the basketball court, football field, on the golf course, on the baseball diamond, it's also behind the scenes. They need CPAs, they need marketing, they need other aspects of making these events to go. And so, as I said for myself, I always talk about the full circle, because I did start off in a minority in an inner city junior golf program when I was 19 years old in the city of Detroit. In the heart of the city, learning the game of golf, that literally was the springboard for my college scholarship, for me to go to my beloved HBCU, Talladega College. And then for me to take that experience and then to move to Atlanta, where I met, Sam Puryear, who at the time was executive director of the East Lake Golf Foundation, to say, hey, did you know that the PGA Tour had a minority internship program? So again, intentionality, right? Junior program in the city of Detroit, Hollywood Golf Institute, intentionality. HBCU creating around that, intentionality. Then you have the PGA Tour with the minority internship program, intentionality, that then I went and worked for the PGA Tour full time, and that literally curated the rest of my life, right? And so how are we able to use these intentional programmings to give opportunities of exposure that at the time when I was looking for a job, I just wanted to work at Nike because of Jordan. Like that was, Spike Lee was, it was all the commercials and want to be like Mike. And I wanted to be like, you know what I mean? I wanted to be like, but there was other aspects of sports that I never even knew about and imagined, even though I played the game, until there was that intentional programming to be able to expose me. So my hope is that there's other individuals, because I know a ton of alum that came out of the internship program and other intentional programs, that they're the bomb. They're doing their thing in the sports industry, and it was because of intentional programming. So that is one of the things that we want to make sure that we're able to do with our young people as well.
So why is it important for you to host an event such as this, as opposed to simply granting an exception to a deserving player?
I mean, well, I'll let Jason, but I have one. I think it goes to the question I said before, I said before. Like, it's not just because it's one player. And the reality of it is what's happening is those that have the support, those who have the public, like they're going to get out there, do some things. And as you know, I don't want to age myself, but I'm 43. It's not like I'm that old, but I am beyond the social media era in the sense of like using the brand and getting out. There are certain advantages that people have. And sometimes you don't have always a support system to get your name out there, to do what's what, but you can play your butt off. But when you're thinking about a whole pool of these of players, 250, 300 players, it is, so there, and I'll let Jason speak to Rocket Mortgage still has their exemptions as a part of it, and people can still submit, but this allows us to talk about another greater, bigger conversation to highlight on a national level more than one player that they can play in this game.
That's right. No, Sommer said it well. I mean, this is when you grant an exemption, one exemption to one player, the conversation becomes about that one player, and which is a good conversation to have. But we think this is just frankly, this platform is a better conversation to have because it's about all of the players who are competing for an exemption. So the stories, the conversation, the experiences are had by dozens and dozens of players, not just one. One player will ultimately earn an exemption to the Rocket Mortgage Classic. A team will earn an exemption to the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational. But there will be a number of individuals whose stories will get told, who will be introduced to a number of different companies, who will be introduced to a number of different PGA Tour players, and their aperture will be open to many. A large group of players will be allowed to shine, as opposed to just one. And so that's why it was important, right? And that we went about it this way. And there's nothing wrong with, and we as an event will award individual exemptions to individual players. But that's a big part of the John Shippen, not just the National Invitational, but also true of the Sports Business Summit. We think there's huge opportunity, if not obligation, to open the aperture and expose, thousands of young men and women of color to the business of not just golf, but the business of sport. And you don't have to just play it. That there's a ton of opportunities to be in the business side of golf. And that's really what was some of our initial motivation when, Sommer knows this, when we started the Rocket Mortgage Classic and we had to hire back in 2019, we had to hire a 12-person team in a short period of time. When we sent out resumes for a number of jobs, entry-level jobs, ticketing, all of the jobs that exist within the tournament team, we had 90 resumes that came back the first day, and we had 88 white candidates, one Latino, one African-American, in the great city of Detroit. And that's where, as Sommer, myself, Ebony Walls in our team, Trina, who I mentioned, as we started talking about that, we realized we have a lot of work to do to expose and create opportunities, awareness, and access about what it's like to be in not just the golf business, but the business of sport. And so that's why we think the golf event is a key component of this. So we're excited about having more than just one individual recognized. We're equally as excited about the Sports Business Summit, which we think can impact and will impact thousands.
And that's the concept when you think about John Shippen, the John Shippen holistically, is telling the bigger story. You know what I mean? And so when Jason talks about putting them on a platform to be able to have this greater story, it's important because what we have seen is that it works. Because those who have received the multiple exemptions, people now know who a Willie Mack is. They know who a Kamau is. Like, their names were not on that level of just, you know, I have friends that don't even really play that know about Willie Mack because they're like, oh, I heard about it again. You know what I mean? Like, because so we see that it works, right? We see that when you do elevate these players and have a bigger conversation, that you're opening up greater opportunities. And because of that, they have received other opportunities and other exemptions and other sponsors, because it allows for other corporations and other partners to not dig and find, because sometimes they don't know where to look. And it's like, bam, here they are. You know, like, we're here. You don't have to, because that's also the conversation is, we look hard, low and high for Black people, and we can't find no.
Right.
We like, no, we here, but we have to know about the opportunities. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is that intentionality conversation that we hear all the time, and I'm sure you hear. It's like, we hear, like, y'all got to tell us where it's at so we can get up on the opportunities.
Right.
That is what we're looking to do within this conversation, is to elevate a lot of brothers and sisters who have been out here trying to get on a tour, blood, sweat, and tears, spending money, spending time to elevate those stories and conversations, because that is going to be what truly starts to dismantle these conversations and historical barriers that are in this sport that I love. I love this sport, but we got some ways to go.
Right. So if we can look ahead for a bit, what does the event look like in 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the growth of any event, regardless of what kind of event it is more often than not driven more by those who participate in it than the promoter or operator, or Sommer and I figuring that out ourselves. So I think, you know, the event today is a product of the listening and learning that I've done, that Sommer's done, and, you know, within our personal and professional network. And so I think when you look at events like, take a look at events like Essence, you know, that started more as a music festival, and it's now much more than a music festival. I think that, you know, we think that, you know, the John Shippen can and should and will be more than just a national invitational golf event, the Sports Business Summit. And, you know, so we're thinking about that now. We're thinking a lot more about, you know, the next 90 days and getting to the finish line. But I think we hope, and we've already having conversations. We hope this becomes a model for other events. I think we're already having conversations of being reached out to by other events in golf, LPGA events, PGA Tour events, to see if this is something that could take place in their market. I think we certainly have some hope and heart for potentially taking what the John Shippen and doing some things maybe up in the Northeast, up closer to where you know, John Shippen hailed from, and the foundation up in you know, in the New Jersey area. So I think we're having those conversations now, and I think there's, you know, I think we're just getting started, but I think, you know, over time we see a lot of opportunities to grow. Frankly, you know, even just from the first year to the second year, this first year, we're going to have an event without, you know, with a summit that's virtual, you know, and so just the notion of, we think in year 2 and 3, building upon that summit, how do you expand that, create more opportunities, more access, more awareness within the business of sport. So Sommer and I aren't lacking for ideas, and everyone that I've mentioned already. It's we're, you know, but we're really going to build it listen, learn, get feedback from participants, to get feedback from the entire golf community and sports community, and let water kind of seek its level over time. So,
Well, do you see it to be a potential model for similar events in other cities surrounding PGA Tour events?
I think so. I mean, obviously the PGA Tour, Marsh Oliver, the entire PGA Tour team, the LPGA, I was very excited about this, and I think we're talking to a number of other, as I mentioned, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour events. Sponsors are reaching out in other markets saying, hey, we're really interested to hear about what you're doing there, with a national event that's based in Detroit. Is that something that, we could explore some version of that in our community? And the answer to that, will be, yeah, we'll absolutely explore that. As long as it continues to deliver on our goals of, diversifying the game of golf, creating more access, awareness, and opportunities around the business of sport, then, as long as it fits in with that mission and elevating and telling the story of John Shippen, then, I think we're up for all kinds of other ideas and opportunities. But it starts with getting this right, getting, the National Invitational and the Sports Business Summit right in this year. But I think, there's plenty of opportunities down the road for this to hopefully grow, and for more events like this to happen.
Nice. So I imagine you'll have some news to share in the coming months about the field of plays in the golf tournament.
Yeah.
Speakers, as well as for the Sports Business Summit. What can you tell us about the process of planning for those things and how you'll put them together?
Yeah, well, I tell you, let Sommer chime in too. I mean, we've got a great team that is spending a lot of time leading the process of planning. We obviously, partner with Sommer and her company, and she's serving as the lead for the event, the tournament. But we have 3 other awesome team members that we get to work with on the John Shippen, who are pulling together our inaugural event. Ebony Walls, who I've mentioned, leads philanthropy and partnerships for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, but she's also leading the creation of our 2-day Sports Business Summit. So she's actively pulling together programming, working with speakers, working with companies who want to be part of the platform, putting together, working on the scholarship and paid internship side of things and the application process. And so there's a lot that goes into that. Evan Pinson, who is leading operations for the event, he actually started as a part of our internship program for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and was brought on recently full time to lead operations for this event. Is figuring out all the logistics of having an event that's kind of plugging into the Rocket Mortgage Classic, which is just played on the North Course, but we're also going to play the John Shippen on the South Course as well. So there's some operational elements that he's working through, and Julian Langford from Intersport is leading all of our client services. So as we have companies like the Children's Foundation, Tryon Solutions, and Rocket Mortgage, Dow, Chemico, different sponsors that are coming on, they're owed deliverables, right? They have assets, be a part of our television show, or have signage on site at the event, or be a part of our summit. And so Julian is spending time providing them contact and information as to how their brand or foundation will be brought to life as they show support for the John Shippen. And so a lot is going into it. We will have more to share. We're moving fast. Plans are going well. And the announcement just coming out this week, the phone's starting to ring. We've been doing a lot of outbound. Sommer, myself, the team have been doing a lot of outbound, listening, learning, proactively reaching out. Rob Kroll, our tournament director for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and the team has been working very closely together to make that outreach. But the phone's starting to ring now, with other sponsors, individuals, players having interest in participating. And so we're fielding those calls now too. So a lot is happening. It's great. It's great energy. We're focused, on it, and we're efforting that now. So it's going to be a fun and exciting 90-day home home stretch here. Right, Sommer?
Yeah, right. Every time you say 90 day, I'm like, really, Jason? Really?
So, Sommer, how and where can people learn more about the John Shippen?
So yes, we have our web page up now. We're going to be building it out so that it is more interactive. But right now, it does have the information at our website, which is the johnshippen.com. So they can go there, and there's actually an opportunity at the bottom for people to contact us if they're interested to know more about it. We've had different players who are interested, who have already, asked, what are the steps, and, we're giving them, kind of the updates as we go along. And then we're also on Facebook under the John Shippen as well as Instagram, and then on Twitter. We are on Twitter as well. So we all of our handles and social media handles and information can be located on our website, thejohnshippen.com.
Nice. So on the website, you did show there's a feature on Thurman and Ruby Simmons. Can you speak about the impact that they've made to the history of basically getting the history of John Shippen, as well as how you got in contact with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I always get like very emotional when I talk about them because I feel like I know them, like, you know what I mean? So first of all, Jason talked about how Bob Denny, who's with PGA, and he's been great. Like, yeah. Bob has been amazing. And even when we had a conversation with him the other day, I just commended him on elevating conversations about Black golf and history, not just John Shippen and Mr. and Mrs. Simmons, but also other stories. A lot of times, as we know, the communication is different when it comes from different audiences to different audiences. That's just the reality, right? And so he did make the connection from Jason Langwell to Mr. Simmons, and he called, and we had literally a three-way conversation. It was old school. Let me click her in. So
called
Jason,
his home phone.
Right.
No
we
cell
called
phone.
his home phone. So Jason clicked me in on three-way. He clicked me in on three-way. And that to your point, when you spoke about Kelley earlier, how you talked to him and it was like a 2-hour conversation, he's just a wealth of knowledge, right? So here it is, he's just like a regular guy in his mind, right? Like his wife was taking a class, he drove her to the school, to the community, to learn about this local golfer. And in that conversation, he was just, it sparked like, oh my God, how did I not know this? How nobody, it just for him to dig and learn more, because it is something that happens so much in Black history, and that's why when you think about who we are as the African diaspora, we were taught our history through the lens of the griot, right? Through teaching us, passing down information verbally, because a lot of times we didn't know, we weren't taught how to read and write. We didn't have access to all these different things. That's how we passed down history, was the griot and passing this information down. And Mr. and Mrs. Simmons, and why I get so passionate, they are that griot. They are the ones of, when you think about the elders in our community that knows the information to elevate this conversation of so much of our history that is suppressed. And it is suppressed for many different ways that I ain't gonna really get into, but it is suppressed, and it continues to have misinformation about who John Shippen was and who he is. So for these citizens, these residents of Scotch Plains, New Jersey, hometown of this area, to say, who is this man, to take it on the mantle to say, we gonna elevate this conversation, we gonna dispel all, I'm gonna sit outside the room for 30 hours until you talk to me. I'm gonna write you a letter. I'm gonna send it to the United States Post Office for this stamp, even though you rejected me 3 times. Like, it is truly who we are as African people, that our resiliency continues to be the beauty of who we are in our culture. And Mr. and Mr. Simmons are that. And so for us to be able to stand on their shoulders, to be able to elevate and to take this conversation, to use the resources of a Rocket Mortgage and Trina Govan-Scott, who's the chief diversity officer, who is personally vested to say, what can we do? Or for a Dow to step up and say, what can we do? That is what this is about. When you talk about equity, there are levels of power that have to be relinquished, right? Mm-hmm. And there is level of power that you have to give access. And that is what we're trying to do with this event. And in doing that with this event, we elevate the conversation about who they are. And it's a reminder to all of us that you don't have to be a big time celebrity, a big time humanitarian, a big time philanthropic person. You can be Mr. or Mrs. Ruby and Thurman Simmons from Scotch Plains, New Jersey, that said, I'm going to tell the story and be the griot on behalf of my people to let the world know where we stand within the history of golf. That is who Mr. and Mrs. Simmons are. And that's why I get emotional. And every time I talk to them, I call them like, okay, I got to get the receipts because I need to know because they coming for us. They trying to say this. So when he like, hold on, let me scan some stuff over to you. Check this out, do this. Yeah. Because we know what this is, right? We know and him being a historian, he's not even a golfer, right? He's a historian, but he truly is the griot of who we are, of the diaspora of just African descent.
You just took me to church.
Listen.
Oh, man. I felt that. I felt. Do you have the plate? Do you have the plate? Do you have the collection plate or no? Because we still trying to raise using Cash App now.
We still trying to raise money. Where's the cash? Where's the cash?
But yeah, we did an event, Blacks in Golf, and had Thurman there as well as Sylvia, and then we had Shayna, who's she's like the next generation from Shady Rest. And it was just so powerful. Like, we're like kids sitting down and learning, and that's what it is. It's the griot, right? That's Absolutely. How we learn about ourselves,
Absolutely.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Definitely golf griots is something that's in the works. But
I saw that. Yeah. And it's funny because we actually, a couple of years ago, when you talk about the history of golf, we talked about the Detroit golf griot, right? Because there's so much history with Calvin Pete being from Detroit, right? Our adopted son, Joe Lewis, and how he was, the color barrier of golf with the San Diego Open. Like, Ben Davis, who was the first, PGA, to get his card. So we have a lot of. So we actually talked about that conversation, and that was my pitch. Actually, to Jason and to Trina, was this conversation about the Detroit golf griot. And it was specific to that because who we are is African people. We that's how we get our information. People always like, we don't have enough history books. It's like, well, we weren't taught. We didn't learn. We had to hide that we couldn't read and learn. And that's how we did relay our history. And so Detroit is very rich in golf history. And a lot of greats that have come from here, locals and nationals. And so I'm very hip to the griot and definitely pay homage to what that is in the African diaspora for sure.
Wow, man. That's so powerful. I'm like holding back tears. But
that's what I'm saying. I get emotional talking about. I'll be like, listen, this is deep, and when you're rooted within the history of just equity and the history of being Black in this country and what comes with that, but then being Black in this country with this game. I mean, and it's not just golf, like it's a lot of industries, right? Because it's so much that we all need to do. And that's why I love this conversation, because even with Jason, our conversations are very open and unapologetic. And I'm like, no, Jason, we can't. No, we gotta look, and he's like, okay, he came back like, okay, well, We talked about Ted Rose, we talked about Spiller, we talked about Sipper, John Shippen. He came back with his research, like, okay, John Shippen, you know, like that's what it's about. That's how we learn through this process, is to keep each other accountable through the process and the experience too.
Right. Wow. So yeah, and wow. Yeah, so Thurman, you know, he had shared just, you know, I know that he's also trying to get a replica because he has a putter that John Shippen made, and you know, it has his like name on it as well. But definitely he is like one of the griots, you know. So that's really all the questions I have. But now I feel like I'm on a high. But thank you so much just for taking the time and, you know, just, you know, speaking with us, and you know, just, you know, we're glad that we could just play a part to help get the word out about the John Shippen. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you all, and we hope that you all take the journey with us, because it is important that when we tell this history that we are also sharing it with others, you know, that look like us, right? And this is a history that a lot of us don't know about, yet alone, you know, just the world, right? So I do think that when we think about just who we are and how powerful we are in our history, we hope that you take the journey, you know, that you all continue to take the journey. So thank you for your time as well.